Thank you, Mansi. A very warm welcome to everyone to the discussion on how AI is transforming healthcare. Thank you very much for your time and participation today. My name is Kashyap Awashia, and I am the moderator of this panel. To introduce myself briefly, I lead the Mentor Trust at IVCAP. Coming to our panel today, we have three very interesting companies from our portfolio: Lexure, Elucidata, and Synapsika. The panelists will share their thoughts on how AI or technology is shaping up healthcare and a few other important aspects of their business. We also have a Q&A session towards the end of this panel discussion, which is for about 30 minutes. Without further delay, I request our panelists to introduce themselves and their companies. So over to Lexure first. So if you can introduce yourself, Niranjan, and the company.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Niranjan Ramakrishnan.
Niranjan?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. So Lexure Dental Group is basically a North American based group. And we have nearly 5 dental labs in the US and 1 in India. And we also have the country's second largest independent design center, dental design center, where we have hundreds of designers working in 3 shifts. And we also run an IT company, which was basically a platform that really specialized for dental industry. And I head that company as a technology CEO, as well as the group CIO for the lab group. Thank you.
So Shweta and Abhishek, if you can introduce yourselves and Elucidata.
Sure. Thanks for having us here. I'm Abhishek, co-founder, CEO of Elucidata. We have been on this journey for around 6 years now. And what we do as a company is to bring ML-ready biomedical data to preclinical R&D teams who are discovering drugs for patients with unmet needs. Shweta, my co-founder, is joining us on this panel discussion as well, so I'll let him introduce himself.
So I'm Shweta. I on Abhishek started Elucidata about 6 years ago, and I lead product and technology at Elucidata.
Thank you. Dr. Cherian?
Thanks, Kashyap. Everyone excited to be here. We are Synapsika. We develop AI for radiology, and that helps medical imaging businesses deliver more accurate and transparent medical reports faster than ever before. At Synapsika, we do research and develop deep learning algorithm to read radiology images. Now, these enhancements of AI are delivered to healthcare providers through our platform RadioLens, which is a completely integrated radiology workflow solution. Now at Synapsika, we are helping more than 500 plus imaging sites across 5 countries, and we are generating 75,000 unique patient exam data every month and growing continuously. Our current focus is on spinal pathologies, for which we have 2 advanced products launched globally, which work on X-ray of spine and MRI of spine. These algorithms are already helping doctors with redetection of diseases, making fewer errors in reports, and instant results from these AI help reduce number of patient visits.
Thanks, thanks everyone for your introductions. So let us start with better understanding the landscape. What is the problem that we are solving, and we heard some of it during introductions, but let's dig a little deeper into it. So Dr. Cherian, for the last few years we have been witnessing a kind of a proliferation of health tech companies, and many of them use, or at least they claim to use AI. So in your experience, how can AI benefit healthcare or patient care? Can you throw some light on that?
See, there are many AI applications offered in the market, and overall this landscape is dominated by startups. The radiology reading market itself is huge, and it's close to $55 billion with the space for niche players. But in daily life, we see limited application of these AI algorithms in day-to-day practice of clinicians and radiology businesses. One reason for that is that AI companies generally have a long gestation period, especially true for AI companies that work in radiology. On average, it takes around 4 years from funding to launch of the first product. Coming to the areas where AI can help in, broadly speaking, we can categorize the medical imaging work, the radiology work in 3 buckets where AI fits in. The first deals with acquisition and processing of images. For example, AI can help with enhancement of the quality of images that have been acquired, faster acquisition of images. Second is the reasoning and perception of medical images, such as detecting a lesion or a pathology. And third deals with reporting and administrative tasks. So most of the AI algorithms in the market, like almost 90% in this space, focus on tasks related to perception and reasoning. Now, these are mostly narrow tasks that are applied for detection and triaging of point pathologies. Now, these narrow applications have limited application in specific setups. So they can reduce turnaround times, give quicker delivery, reduce specific errors in certain scenarios like that of emergency care. Coming to the last bucket, which is where AI helps with reporting and administrative tasks, only less than 4% of players focus in deep integration of AI with reporting and administrative back office work. Now, these tasks form a significant portion of the cost that imaging business incur. Reporting expenditure alone is 20 to 25% of overall revenue in these businesses. And enhancement in these areas, though it is difficult to do, but will truly impact the bottom line for these businesses. And this is what we are focusing at Synapsika. The idea is to take out mundane and repetitive work from plate of radiologists and allow them to utilize their time to more for clinical interpretation and diagnosis of these diseases. I'll take example of one of our US customers who work in spine and personal injuries segment. They are using SpindleX, which is our AI on X-ray spine. They have been able to reduce more than half of their workforce, admin and reporting workforce, while still reducing turnaround times. So last we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where they said that we cannot now imagine going back to the way we worked. So that is, when I hear that, that is how I feel that AI is going to help these healthcare providers in the coming future.
Yeah, very interesting, Dr. Cherian. And see, you touched upon 2 aspects. Primarily, one was, the turnaround time, or kind of, the gestation period and cost. And if you look at, the drug discovery companies across the world, the cycle, the drug discovery process can be, expensive, lengthy, and kind of, unpredictable. There also, the gestation period is very long, and it can be, prohibitively expensive. So Abhishek and Shweta, how does AI help innovators basically, accelerate drug discovery at a cheaper rate and, let's say with a higher degree of, predictability?
Yeah, Kashyap, thanks again for having us. I'll just build on what Cherian shared. I believe in the last 5 to 10 years, what has happened is that the entire value chain, like from a scientist at an university or Merck, company like Merck, right, all the way to a clinician, this promise of AI has been embraced, right? The language has been co-opted by the CEO of Novartis as well as the hiring plan that Novartis has. So that's a good macro environment for a company like Lucida to exist and thrive and grow. And we have a particular thesis in all of this where we believe that in the last 10, 15 years, right, not just in life sciences and healthcare, but other industries too, the advance in AI has been so much that the models that you make for predictive modeling, for example, Cherian and his team would be working on, right, has evolved quite a bit, right? And the bottleneck has shifted to make sure that you have good quality data, right? That would feed into your AI models. And that's where we have focused on. So we have been building what we call ML-ready biomedical data. And the technology that we have built has been growing 32 times in the last year and a half. So we have had 5 consecutive quarters where we have doubled the number of ML-ready data sets on our platform for scientists in preclinical R&D teams all over the world. And what that has led to is for a number of our customers who are using our platform, our technology, that has led to a 4x speed up in terms of finding the target that they would target to cure a disease. And that is the first step in the whole drug discovery process, which has been discussed at length about how slow and time consuming and expensive it is, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the first steps of that, which cost you many years and billions of dollars, is discovering a target. And we have helped a number of companies across different indications to do that, to get to that milestone, to get to that inflection point 4 times faster than industry average. And that's driven by the fact that these companies now have access to ML-ready biomedical data at a scale that was not possible earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's how we are translating the promise of AI for these companies, and hopefully that will translate to a benefit to patients and their families in time to come. Shwetab, I'm sure he would have to this.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I think a lot of the workflows, I think, like Thierry mentioned, have been very influenced by machine learning, right? And in our case, specifically, the part of the workflow that we really focus on is how do you go from semi-structured or unstructured data to having something that we can build models on, right? And that's an area that has, I think, that's been our area of focus, and there's been a lot of work that we have done, right? And like on about 10 to 15 tasks at this point, we can show that we can do better than what human experts can, right? So that's one area of application. That's what we do. On the other side, of course, there's a lot of work that has happened in interpretive tasks. So, for example, if you're looking at predicting routine structures, for example, there's been a paper recently that has been highlighted very widely. Closer home to kind of what we do, making sense of very high dimensional data, and that's not traditionally a place where AI has done very well, because the outcomes are not as clear. It's not clear what the categories are, what categorization you're doing, but for a subcategory of those problems, machine learning has definitely shifted the bottleneck. Where it's not always a challenge to be able to build an algorithm if you have enough data and enough high quality data. But the impact is through many different stages, right? From early stage clinical discovery, which is where we focus, to sort of very late stage clinical trials, and how do you segment patients? How do you decide which patient segment to go after? In all of those areas, there's been significant applications of machine learning.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And, we will come back to this whole data aspect of AI a little later in the discussion. But, as far as the technology is concerned, right. So let me ask Niranjan. So, Lexzir has put India on the map for, 3D printing and imaging, in terms of technology for dental labs. So in your view, what is the opportunity going forward?
See, I think the way that industry, I'm talking primarily from the US industry per se, the way it really moved from traditional, the way the dentists used to take a mold and then take a, kind of a sample of the mouth and then used to send it across to the labs for manufacturing. It used to take anywhere from 7 working days to even up to 21 working days, because everything was manual. The mold has to be, taken it and put it in a box, courier it, and then they receive it and all that. Now, when I started in 2018, the numbers were 15 to 16% of cases were moving to digital, but now it is 33% of cases become digital. That means the doctors use intraoral scanner just to quickly scan. And a press of a button, the image goes to the cloud and it's available for the labs to download. So the way that international way of really managing the business itself, be it China, Vietnam, India, competing with the US itself and trying to really do the manufacturing because of the digital landscape available, right? And so this is one way of really looking at it. Second aspect is, earlier we used to sit and make the models, physical models, and then used to really check the fitment of the truth, and also preparing the temporary crowns and things like that. Today, in a click of a button, the moment you finish the design, you can just do a 3D print and the model is readily available in front of you. And in fact, we can send the model along with the finished product to the doctors. And the most important and the recent innovation is again in the temporary crown. So you go to a dentist for a problem, you need not to wait for a week or 10 days with the problem itself. So you get a temporary crown manufactured the same day, printed on the chair side itself, so the doctor can fit and send it across to you. And then you can come back after a visit or after meetings or after weddings or whatever it is, and actually you can replace with the actual crown. So I think the way the technology, like, earlier, which was like taking weeks together, now it takes a couple of minutes, right? And cost of manufacturing itself, it has really come down. So with the Lexir Group, like, especially sitting our the offshore center in Gurgaon, we were able to really like implement the 100% digital lab. So we don't deal with any of the physical impressions at all. We do 100% digital impressions, and we do the complete 3D printings and 3D millings, etc. And most important thing is, we are this, as I said, like we were the second largest independent design center. That means not only for our own manufacturing labs, we also, like, more than 65% of our designs come from our competition. So they use that independent design center in Delhi, and then we are able to really design it. And sitting here, we are able to fire a 3D print when next to the patient chair. So that is like the way things are really moving forward. And the last I would say is, since we are also talking about AI, one of the important innovation that we did recently, it really attracted our company as a whole, by really like by even our competition started working with us, is on the chair side scan validation of the intraoral scan design, right? So earlier, when the doctor used to scan and send that design, anywhere from 4 hours to 48 hours, the labs used to take it to download this digital scan. And then like they used to open a CAD/CAM software and then check the quality of the scan. By the time they give the feedback that the scan quality isn't good, because not all the dentists are going to be properly trained on using the latest technologies. So scan quality used to have problem. And then the doctor needs to bring the patient back in the chair and repeat the scan for no mistake of the patient, right? Mm-hmm. And what we did is using AI, within few seconds after the scan is submitted, without any human intervention, we were able to check the quality of the scan, and we were able to give the feedback to the patient and the doctor when the patient is still in the chair itself. So amazing. We call that as a chair side scan QC. And it changed the way, especially with the COVID, patient didn't want to even go to the dentist in the first place. Now you don't want to bring them back on the chair just because the dentist made a mistake of doing a wrong scan. So this is really, I would say, it's not just the innovation, but it's the need of the hour. We were able to really do it.
Oh, fantastic. That's really interesting. And, one of the things you mentioned, that the software or the platform that you have built for internal use is also leveraged by competition, which is remarkable. Yeah, great. So, I mean, anyway, let me come back to, the data aspect of, our discussion. So, data and AI are kind of inseparable, right? I mean, so let's again take a slightly closer look. And Dr. Cherry, healthcare is all about data, right? I mean, you have a ton of data from X-rays and labs and whatnot. So for an AI powered company, right, such as Synapsika, what are some of the challenges that you face, while dealing with data, including privacy, maybe?
See, Kashyap, I guess it's safe to say that getting access to usable medical data is one of the top challenges for any AI company in healthcare. And the data requirement for developing good AI models that generalize is huge, and they have to be sourced from multiple sources and different machines, and should capture a lot of variation. And Abhishek mentioned it rightly when he was speaking about the data. And the problem is so huge that there are a lot of companies that are coming up solving for this specific problem alone, like sourcing and preparing medical data, and giving it to companies who train AI algorithms based on this data. So if we take a journey of a startup, and I'll be speaking mostly from experience, that how we have seen data challenge evolve for us, and I'm sure it applies to a lot of other companies as well. So early in our journey, the most common approach that any AI company would take is to secure data that it needs through a research partnership on promise of future payment, because you don't have a lot of capital early on to invest in it. Now, these deals are very time consuming, and average closing cycle to get hands on a large amount of data is somewhere close to 6 months to 1 year. That is the minimum amount of time you need to invest that we're talking about. And one important thing is that when you do get access to this data, you realize that most of this data is unusable. A point again which Abhishek and Shweta were pointing out. And this is mostly because the data archiving and retrieval systems that are used in large institutions are not very tech savvy, not very efficient. So fortunately, we solved our data problem through research partnership with AIIMS, New Delhi. They have a lot amount of data available with them. I guess it would be safe to say one of the huge data banks globally, if I dare say. There is more than 7,000 footfall of patients there daily. And the second data that we sourced was from partnership in US, which is there's a company called the Spinal Kinetics, who also act as a distributor for our product in US. And we were able to build and start our business and reach to a point with this data. But and moving on, when a startup gets funded and they have capital to spend, and time becomes a much more important resource than money in life. So startups generally tend to purchase the data for development, and they additionally spend a lot amount of data preparing, because purchase data is raw. You have to prepare it to be able to use it to train AI models, and preparation also has a good amount of spending. In fact, we have seen when we are speaking with companies who give us raw data, so they think that all the value lies in the data that they provide, but the most expenditure that goes is into the preparing of medical data. So it is not like finding a car in an image, right, that anyone can do. It is like finding pathologies in an image, which only a special group of people can do, and they are paid very highly in the market. So later in stages, that is how companies they tend to purchase the data and go with preparing the data by themselves, so as to get specific results and get AI. But one important problem with purchasing data is that you cannot go to 1,000 sites asking small amount of data. You go to a couple of sites and get data from there, and that brings up the problem of generalization, because when you secure data only from, let's say, 3 machines or from 3 institutes, you don't capture enough variety in your data so as to ensure that the trained model will generalize over a new set of patients, and that is where the applicability of model fails in various other demographic regions, demographic areas. So the way we think of data is that having a proprietary source of data is going to be a moat for an AI company in medium to long term. And take example of Facebook or Google, and the companies which are best positioned to develop good algorithms are ones which have access to a huge amount of proprietary data. Now, with our radiology platform, RadioLens, we are generating, as I mentioned earlier, 75,000 unique patient data every month, and we are growing each month with that. And these are not only raw data, but with them we also get usable medical reports and clinical history of patients, which we can use to develop and train AI models quickly with significantly less investment. And to just give an example of how we think that this will help us in long term is like by next year itself, we'll have access to approximately 4 million patient data of all types of radiology exam. And we really think that this loop of data generation, it will be an important strategy for us going ahead.
Understood, Dr. Cherian, thanks. So I think we have probably around 3 or 4 minutes left before we open up the session for Q&A. So quickly, Abhishek and Shweta, how do you approach data acquisition for Elucidata?
Great question. So the worldview that we have is the 2 axes in which our customers, those are the needs that these 2 axes that capture our customers' need. One is just solving the availability problem, and I think Cherian addressed both of them. Once available, often that does not translate to usability, and there are like tons of requirement defined as to what that usability mean here, right? So we are solving both of these problems for our customers. And if you talk about just availability, like, the spectrum of problem is huge, right? All the way from being not aware of something that is already out there to something where you have to, fill up a form, or something where you have to fill up a very burdensome form, or in some cases you have to pay quite a bit of money to, and it's very fragmented, right? So players like AWS and GCP are also trying to solve that problem. So there are a lot of S3 buckets, which would have data on drug clinical trial and phenotypic data as to who smokes how much and what are the lung scans of those smokers who eventually develop cancer. But that data is not quite usable for let's say an enterprise AI team at Pfizer, or smaller biotech companies cannot even afford that. So we are trying to address both of these axes, and the consistent challenge that we see is, hey, this data cannot leave our premises. So we are in conversation with a number of academic hospitals and commercial hospitals, and they have concerns around data leaving their premises, right? And premises again is virtual, right? To us, that's a great opportunity, right? Because a therapeutics company cannot really solve that, but I believe we are backing ourselves to solve that by applying federated ML approaches, which are getting a lot of traction in the space. And once available, we have solved the usability problem already, which we can scale up even more. So that's how we see, and that's how I think we are bringing value to our customers. Yeah, I'll have Shwetabh chime in as well, because he can add more color.
So yeah, I think Abhishek referred to a bunch of those challenges anyway. I think the other sort of like challenge that is there, of course, which a lot of AI teams deal with, is that even if you have access to data, it's not like formats are not consistent. Variables are not easily marked. In some kind of cases like radiology, and I was just talking to another radiology company yesterday, and their problem is that just curation itself is very expensive, right? Because you need a radiologist to do that curation, and that person is a very trained resource who would probably not do something as monotonous. But so I mean, the other sort of approach that we have also taken is to look at a lot of publicly available data and get it to a point that it's very high quality, very usable. And we have had a lot of success, and our customers have had a lot of success building great models, getting a lot of insights, even from what public data is out there. But that can be very hard to consume, right? So and we have, I think, examples of this from all sorts of industries. For example, like financial companies or hedge funds, who just look at publicly available data and can connect the dots and can take bets which are very, very counterintuitive. Right? So that's sort of the other axis as well. We're pretty bullish on what publicly available data can do, and I think we encourage our partners and everybody else to use that as a resource as well. It can take you pretty far along the way as well.
Thanks. Thanks for those insights, everybody. I think we have time for maybe one more topic that I wanted to address, and then maybe a couple of questions from the audience. So it's for Niranjan. So and again, going back to the theme of this event, can you throw some light on what has been LegZer's approach to realize the multiplier effect? Yeah, that'll be nice to for the audience to know as well.
Yeah, so the way we kind of inorganic way of growing the company, if you look at it, we went around buying the labs or acquiring the labs which are already existing in the market for like 30-40 plus years, right? So especially in the North American space, like we really acquired some of the labs are celebrating like 47th year of existence, etc. But one thing we were very particular about, like when we really acquired labs are, tomorrow we can really make them as a centers of excellence. Like we acquired labs of different skills. For example, like there is one particular lab that really deals with crown and bridges. Like, they're doing extremely a good job, a high volume. So they have kind of implemented lean management, we call it as a one-piece flow. So they kind of productized the services, the way things can really get manufactured. So there is another lab like where we completely dealing with implants and, surgical guidelines, etc. So I think the most successful model of our business would be is like, one is going and acquiring labs from different skill sets, addressing different market segments. Second thing is we also created the offshore and on-site model, setting up an Indian-based design center and a digital lab. So that really gives an advantage of like if any customer is wanting a quick turnaround time with less cost to be kind of incurred, then we always have an option. We could be very transparent to them, all the digital cases would go to India, but with all the UPS and all the tie-ups, we were able to deliver it in 3 to 4 working days. So we were the first lab in the US where we were able to deliver a crown in 27 working hours. That's kind of from getting outsourced to design to manufacture and ship it back. So I think we kind of innovated the process itself. And the third most important thing is, the kind of a platform that we built, which was originally meant for an internal purpose, for connecting our customer and getting the feedback. Today, that platform is run as a platform as a service, and we spin that off as a separate technology company. And we are valuing at hundreds of millions of dollars in a couple of years. So that way, even our competition is actually using the platform to communicate and collaborate with the dentist. So we have more than 25,000 plus dentists on the platform already. So I think the innovation of the approach and the business model, not just on the technology per se, not just on the process. I think the approach itself was very, very unique, and that's where we were able to very quickly multiply. We were able to grow very quickly.
So I think we are kind of running short of time, and thanks by the way, Niranjan, for that explanation. What we can do is maybe I can take a couple of questions from the audience, and the questions that will not be able to answer today, we will get in touch with the audience offline and get them answered. So the first question is for Synapsika. So Cherian, the question is, I'll summarize it. In the US market, one of the important stakeholders is insurance companies or payers, right? So I mean, how do you think their approach is for an AI-enabled healthcare offerings, as Synapsika forays into the US market?
It's an interesting question, and the insurance segment itself is. It's very huge and has a very different set of requirements than that of a regular healthcare provider. And for example, the traditional health insurers that are there are focused on looking for solutions that can automate and reduce the claim processing time for them. And another important area of interest for them is fraud detection in claims that they receive. And this is especially true for US. The documentation and the administrative work that is required for to get reimbursement for insurance companies is it is very costly and time consuming. So as to the effect of it is that many small private practices have stopped taking insurance patients, and they are only taking cash patients now. So I believe an AI company which focuses on documentation and the back office work, which integrates with the medical reports of patient and focuses on back office work, can really help either with these practices with insurance reimbursements and also help insurance companies process their claims fast.
Yeah, thanks, Arian. So I think in the interest of time, I think we just have time probably for one last question for Elucidata. The question is, who are your customers and how are they spread geographically?
So today, most of them are concentrated in Cambridge, USA, and South San Francisco. But we have a few customers in Europe and Canada as well. I think Southeast Asia is a zone that we have not explored as much because of bandwidth issues. But there's a lot of activity going on in the Indian biotech scene, both in academia and industry. We are trying very hard to be part of that ecosystem. And clearly, like Singapore and Japan are very active areas in this space. So that's where we see the future and growth to be in. But so far, we have focused mostly in North America.
I see. So thank you again, everyone, for your participation. Thank you, panel members, for your time and insights. And of course, we wish continued success to all our three companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.